MSV is a person who's able to just do it like that. With Raja, it is, I think, a kind of an internalization. I think nobody understood the importance of pitch perfection like Rahman. My serious music will draw everybody.
What is your general attitude towards the film song? Because in your writings and also in your book, you tend to kind of bring together like light music and film music. You tend to kind of club these into one category or one basket. So one gets a feeling that maybe you kind of treat it as a bit of a lowbrow art. How do you look at a film song?
First of all, I think the word light music is not my creation. So it's a word that's been around. Right. But I think I get your point. Now that you're saying this, I get your point that maybe light music is not the right word, actually. Especially coming from a Carnatic musician, it has a certain connotation. You have a valid point when you make that. I think it's the Tamil Nadu scenario where light music and cinema music has a kind of conflated itself. You go to Kerala, you go to even Karnataka, you have a whole so-called, again, light music or semi-classical kind of genre that is non-cinema. In Tamil Nadu, we seem to have completely lost that. So if you say non-classical, you're either looking at what is folk numbers or you're looking at cinema numbers. Right. So I think there needs to be probably a reassessment of that word. First of all, I agree with you. But I think that cinema music by itself is one of the most dynamic musical forms. I think the greatest asset for cinema music is it doesn't need to have one aesthetic shape. There's no other artistic form in the world that is so dynamic. So the whole idea of cinema music is that the aesthetics constantly will change. I think that's incredible if you think of the storyline, the director, the screenplay, the context, the time, everything can change everything about the music. It can change the arrangement, it can change the idea of the sound. There's no other musical form in the world that can claim that. And I think that's its greatest asset. So therefore, in a way, to box it as any other kind is probably wrong. But do we just call it cinema music or film music? I think it's the most dynamic musical tradition we could have.
So I also get this feeling sometimes that when a Carnatic musician branches out into this dynamic musical form, that the musical establishment sometimes looks down on them, like they've sold out or something. Do you get that feeling as well?
I think it's probably changed a bit now. I mean, I'm just thinking aloud. But I think, for example, when Unni started singing, and I know as an insider in the Carnatic world, there were people saying all kinds of rubbish things, and they were all rubbish. Saying that somehow singing in the films may affect his music, or but what Unni sang as a Carnatic musician before he sang in the film and after he sang in the film is as Carnatic as it was and as it is. It's just a perception issue. But there is an issue in the insider that they somehow feel, that's where I think the word light music also plays a kind of a detrimental role, because they think somehow it's easy music. And I also want to say this presumption that if you've learned classical music, you can sing cinema music easily is just rubbish. All classical musicians cannot sing film music. Singing film music requires a different technique, requires a different headset, requires a different enunciation, in a different accent. And so,
even a different emotive capacity.
Emotive capacity, it's completely different. So therefore, this is a completely wrong perception. It's not just Carnatic, even the classical world in general is just too stiff upper lip and thinks a bit too much about itself. The fact is, in terms of its aesthetic depth or in terms of its technicality, in terms of its gravitas, film music has as many demands of a singer as Carnatic is. Therefore, I don't think we should have this feeling. But I think maybe now it's changed a bit. I'm wondering whether in 2017, there is a bit of a change compared to, say, in the 90s or early 2000s in terms of Carnatic musicians singing in films. But at the same time, I don't think we should take anything for granted.
So in the older days, one also used to hear this, that if one sang film songs, their voice would change, and that they would start singing differently on the stage.
I don't think so. I think, look, one thing is true. They require different productions, voice productions. Okay, if your Carnatic foundation for Carnatic is fine, then irrespective of where you jump and skip and you share and you explore, you can come back to this without a problem. Now, if this is in trouble, then you're probably going to get into trouble irrespective whether you sang another thing or not at some point of time.
Right.
So I really don't think that it'll affect this and all that. I think many times it's perception. You know, when a person sees somebody, they immediately decide so many things. At the same time, there are people who sing only Carnatic music who have terrible voice production.
Right.
But so it's got to do with so many other factors, and blaming it on cinema music is a convenient excuse for those who have a highbrow feeling.
What do you think of this exercise that people do of mapping film songs to ragas? I mean, as a classical musician, have you heard a film song that you would say this is purely in this raga?
The first question, mapping is just a compulsive habit. It's just something that because it's true of any field you're trained in. And because you're trained in a certain way, your mind starts mapping, and that's a human condition that you're trying to think. I'm not very sure that's the way you should do it. That's something I like to correct myself and not do it. Now, is there a song which is completely purely in the raga first? I mean, is it necessary is of course the larger question.
No, let me just interrupt you there. So you're saying that mapping is not something you subscribe to?
No.
Okay.
I actually say I don't at all.
Okay.
In fact, I think that kind of destroys your ability to enter that aesthetic frame.
No, but there are a lot of people, again, who say that if I hear a raga in a film format song, and because of the repetition that the film song has, the raga's phraseology and grammar kind of sticks in my mind. So when I go and enter a Carnatic concert, I'm able to say, oh, this sounds like that, and therefore...
Well, that's also, I mean, there are two things to this. One, you're talking about people who are trying to also enter the Carnatic world, who use film music as, say, shall I handle. But there are also people who listen to Carnatic music and map to Carnatic songs. That also happens, right? So that's more got to do with trying to get access. But I'm saying, as a musician who knows ragas, okay, that's probably one stage of learning because you're trying to figure out something. But I really believe that if you want to enter a film song, you should not map. Because mapping it makes you see it only in terms of that raga, not in terms of a melodic creation that it is. And it need not be purely that raga. Okay? And I find that when I stopped mapping, I actually hear the layers far better. I actually hear the BGM score even better. When I map, I'll tell you the BGM score will escape.
Okay.
Because all you're looking is primary melodic source. You stop mapping, you will see how the bass was actually contributing to the second charana, which it was not doing in the first charana. So, in fact, mapping sometimes doesn't allow you to enter this space, though it's a handle. Right. It's a handle, that I don't deny. But I'm quite certain that should be passed.
Do you think there's any song that can...
I mean, I would say that many of the songs in Darbari Kannada are purely, accurately Darbari Kannada.
Like what?
This thing, no? Kalyanate Nila. It's more or less there. Or, many of them are there. Or some of the Malava Gaulas that Rajas use. I don't remember the song, but some of them have used. Right. Are more or less there. I mean, in terms, if you take the BGM out and just listen to the melody, I'll say, yeah, they're more or less
there.
Yeah. Maybe some little things here and there, but more or less there.
So, hypothetically, if you found a film song that was quote unquote pure in its use of raga, and the lyrics were of a certain respectability, let's put it that way.
What is that supposed to mean?
No, what I mean is like, because the Carnatic stage requires a certain standard of lyrics. You cannot go and sing a Gana, you probably can, but but the average person would not go.
Okay,
you're getting a point.
I got the drift, but go
on. So what I'm trying to say is that would you be hypothetically open to singing a film song on stage?
I think it's a very interesting question. First of all, there have been film songs that have entered this stage.
Right,
even before, GNB's songs have entered, MS's songs have entered. So it's not a new phenomenon. Okay, what I will look for is this. If you ask me.
Just to interrupt you, but the point is that the GNB phase and all, there was a quote unquote purer use of Carnatic music because the songs themselves are pretty classical.
Agree, accept it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in principle, I agree with you. There is that huge difference.
Right.
But I precisely think that yes, I can't say it is not a possibility or something. What I will look for is this. I will not just look for, say, raga authenticity. I'll say, okay, what can I do with this song? What creative opportunity within the Carnatic aesthetic idiom does this song give me?
Okay.
Now, if the song does provide that, then I'll say, why not?
Have you encountered a song?
Actually, I haven't. I mean, but I mean, I'm not able to say no. You can't. I don't think so. I think if there is a song in a raga, and if there is say possibly one or two places which are different, which can be, shall we say, molded if allowed, then I think, and if it allows me to expand it,
Right.
to explore it, why not? I will not say why not. But only thing what we have to do is, once it enters the Carnatic world, it enters as a different being.
Yeah.
That transformation is a tough one, Baradwaj. See, while this sounds principally great, will I be able to transfer it and give itself its own life within a different aesthetic framework? If the song can recreate itself in a different aesthetic framework, yes. If it is unable to find that body, then it's a problem.
Okay.
That's how I would
That's
look
your
at it.
thing. Okay. In your book, A Southern Music, it's a great book. You speak about Ilayaraja's transposition of Mari Mari Ninne from the raga Kamboji to Saramati, and you kind of seem opposed to the idea. So I wanted to ask you to explain that passage a bit for those who haven't read the book.
Definitely.
And also isn't it a creator's right to do this? I mean, we hear in Western classical music, we hear of themes and variations all the time. So just wanted to ask you about these couple of things.
So I'll answer in three parts. First of all, within the Carnatic tradition, what does it mean to be a composer? I think that's the principal question that needs to be looked at. A composer, the word that is used is Vagyekara. Somebody who has worked with, put it simply, the melody and the lyrical part, and in a way, it's a confluence of both that creates the aesthetic body called a composition. So the composition is, in its creation, wedded to each other lyrically, syllabically, to every movement that is happening. So this is what a composition is. Now, in this unison, when I learn a composition, I do already make variations. Now, all the different schools of learning the same composition gives you different variations. But what is it that does not change? There is a certain melodic motif that does not change, melodic growth does not change, and obviously which means that the raga and tala and text, these are the three elements, right? Text, raga and tala remain as carried down from the composer's tradition through his mind and through the disciples. So one thing is that variations are already there, not that variations are not there. So when Ilayaraja took that song and said, I will change the raga, what he's primarily done, he has completely collapsed the composition. He's collapsed the aesthetic body that it is, which is for me primarily the problem. He is now almost, to put it very bluntly, he has piggybacked on Tyagaraja's lyrics to create what is his own composition otherwise. To me, that is not a variation. Mari Mari Ninne and Saramati, if it had any other lyrics, even Mari Mari Ninne melodically is Ilayaraja's composition. So it does not have any connectivity as an aesthetic body to the creation by Tyagaraja. To me, I am completely, that is unacceptable to me. If suppose he had used, and first of all, this is a composition that has an oral tradition, that has a tune that is available. If it was a song where there was no tune available and he put his own tune, that's a different discussion. There's a vocal tradition, there's an oral tradition, there's a tune available. So there is an aesthetic united body called Mari Mari Ninne which is available. You can't collapse it completely and then say it's my variation. What you can do is use that and build on it. That is for me unacceptable. That is for me a bit unfair. Because Tyagaraja Nuta comes there, everybody says Tyagaraja Kirtana, you use that to give yourself Carnatic authenticity on the screen. But then you're not willing to respect the fact that the aesthetic composition was actually far more. It was in Kamboji, it had a certain melodic motif. That to me is unacceptable. Having said that, and I've said this in the book, Ilayaraja is not the first person to do this. Carnatic musicians themselves have done it. Okay? Right. We ourselves have completely changed ragas of compositions, changed structures of composition. So this is, Ilayaraja is not the first person doing it, but he was the first person to do it on, say, the cinema scape. So that is why for me that transposition was not acceptable. Right? He could have either written his own lyrics or he could have used that Kamboji, and suppose he had created different sangatis to that composition. That there would be no problem. No, for me that's not a problem. This is the problem.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the three giants of Tamil film music, which basically MSV, Ilayaraja and A.R. Rahman?
Yeah,
in the sense that they've come to define three distinct eras of Tamil film music.
Yeah, absolutely. See, if you talk about MSV, the first two things strike me. I think any song, it's not just a film song, I think first melodic motif that comes from that song is the most magical part of a song. You know, that first line, if you take any kirtana also, you know, it's that Pallavi line that kind of defines everything, right? And I really think that MSV is a person who's able to just do it like that. When you hear the lines, he's like, I can almost see him with his harmony putty and just being blah, 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 and then the lines out. Probably one of the most natural musicians that we've had in the whole cinema world, or in this country for that matter, to be able to just create so many tunes and so many motives that he was able to build on with such elan, and I think that is his magic, which is why it never leaves you. With Raja, it is, I think, a kind of an internalization which is spectacular. I think he's a kind of a person who is able to see the whole even before the tune was there, some weird way. I don't think he even composed, but somehow the whole was already there. Like, what is the imagery that is required from what I'm creating was something seemed to have mapped. And to his credit goes the depth and layering that he brought to film music, not just in South India, in the whole of this country. The kind of layering that he brought to cinema music is unbelievable. And it didn't matter whether the layering came from what genre of music. And we keep talking about fusion today. I think the person who really understood fusion is Raja, at a level which is quite unparalleled. So you had songs where you had electronic instruments, you had violins, you had some tabla from somewhere. Now, even sonically, to bring the three together, forget about musically, is very hard because they just don't go together. There's a problem. But somehow when you listen to the three in an Ilayaraja song, they almost seem like they're from the same cultural basket as they've lived, like 300 years, this is how we've been doing something, That's astounding. Now with Rahman, it's a completely different, I think nobody understood the importance first of pitch perfection in South Indian cinema music like Rahman. With all due respects to the great composers, they ignored it. It's a fact. Even if you listen to Raja songs, I'm sorry, the choruses are off key so many times. Even the main singers sometimes are not there. The first person who said this is unacceptable, just basically unacceptable, I think was Rahman. 1. 2, he also saw the importance of, you have a melody, you have a melodic idea. It's not just important about what that melodic idea is, it's also important on how it is transferred in terms of sound. And that's a very important aspect of musical creation. We in general, I think culturally, we tend to ignore that. There's something about it, maybe it's cultural. We say, that doesn't matter. But not only did he understand it, he was able to explore it. Explore it. There's something about all Rahman songs, whether you like the song or not, that's very rounded. That's the word I can use. I'm not able to use any other word. There's something that's very round about it. There is something that kind of completes it. And I think that's his understanding of how do you sonically transfer a melodic idea. What do I do to give itself that form and let it flow? It's an incredible talent too. Incredible. It's quite incredible. Very different.
So have you, as somebody who clearly has listened to a lot of these songs, has there been any point in your music that you've maybe imbibed an idea from here, or any of these composers, anything that they've done, anything that's influenced that part of your music?
Very good. I know. Consciously, I can't think of anything. I really can't. But I think that there are a few things that have seeped in, not just in me, but in general. For example, I think sometimes when even Carnatic musicians sing Sindhu Bhairavi, I think there is a bit of influences that come from the cinema world in phrases and ideas from film songs that kind of seep in. So I think sometimes yes, but I can't think consciously of anything that's directly probably come.
Because a long time back when I interviewed a classical singer, won't name the person, they said that they listened to MSV songs to get Sangatis to sing on things, because there were some of them where they were so inventive in the way certain phrases were used that they helped So I was wondering if you had...
Not really, but I can even use the same thing for G. Ramanathan, for example.
Right,
You know, I mean, because of the Carnatic connection, I think some of the, the songs in Kapalote Tamidan or, what is that? Mullai Malar Mele. These kind of songs. I think there is a lot you can take from there. There are a lot of phrases that are important. But I don't know whether I can consciously say that.
You were...
I don't know. I don't think I can.
Do you have a favorite music director? Indian?
Oh, very tough. I think, for me, Raja is numero uno, simply because I grew up with that man's music and his sound is there in me. But also a big fan of S.D. Burman.
Okay.
S.D. Burman and some of his songs. These two I will pick out.
Can you just sing an S.D. Burman song?
No, don't ask me to sing. That's a bad idea.
Bad idea, okay. You spoke a bit about this before, but do you think film music, given its reach, its appeal, is a good vehicle to popularize Carnatic music?
I'm actually not convinced by this argument, okay? I think what happens is this. I would like to be proven wrong. It's good if I'm wrong. Is those who have been somehow, shall we say, introduced to Carnatic in some fashion. Either their sister learned at home or their mother sang. Some little thing. For them, film music seems to a way of getting back. Because that triggers some thoughts and some ideas and it's rekindled. But for people who don't belong to, say, the cultural spectrum of the Carnatic at all, I really don't think I can't think of so many people like way out of this cultural realm who have listened to cinema music and said, wow, I want to know what Kalyani is. I don't think that really happens. So, I'm not convinced that it really works that way. Because does that draw them into the Carnatic world is what we are asking. And my own understanding is it really does not. What could be done maybe is, I think, maybe do programs just for people outside these cultural realms, where you use film music and you do it. But even then, I really think it's a kickback that works with that. I don't think it really feeds into the Carnatic environment. I don't think so.
Okay. In an Open magazine article last year, you said, as a musician, I'm extremely uncomfortable with the direction film music has taken today. Can you explain this? Because the article was about a number of things, so this particular point kind of wasn't elucidated. So I was wondering what...
See, this is an old discussion we've had on technology, but I think there's a deeper point that we need to think about. What is the role of a composer? I think that is something that is not really discussed. What does a composer do? What is the process of ideation? What is the process of creation? What are the tools that you use? And I think this is what worries me. Because I think we've got soundscape as an idea. Today I think it's taken over the idea of composition. So what is a soundscape for a film, for a context? Now that seems to be what people are more interested in, rather than the ideation of melodic motives.
Okay.
Or building on, not even, or building on melodic motives. Now the question that needs to be asked is that the direction of composition in films? Now, of course, the technology argument also comes in very close to it. And let's not trivialize of saying pro and anti-technology. It's quite silly. A guitar is technology, a sitar is technology, keyboard is technology. So let's not, or a computer is technology. The question is this. I think the creative spirit of humanity, irrespective of this film, is something that uses these tools. And these tools in a way trigger the creative spirit. But are we now saying we don't need to do that process?
Right.
Let the system do that process and we will do the arranging of that process. Is that what a composer should do? Is that the new paradigm for composition? If that is the paradigm, is that something we need to be worried about? Are we losing some ability of a spark of that little thing that does more than saying that's a beautiful song? That does something else, and that something else comes from undeniably the human being. Are we sacrificing that? Are we too given to making everything sound neat, everything sound well, nicely ended, everything that fits a certain frame, a certain sound mode? I'm kind of getting the feeling that we have sanitized the process of music composition to the point where there is no discomfort and there is no that little movement that may happen, and that's because we are probably taking it away from the human spirit. I'm little concerned about it. I'm little concerned about it. And not that we should erase the methods we're using, but I think we need to rethink them. We need to rethink them deeply.
So does this mean that you keep listening to enough new songs to feel this constantly?
I do. I mean, I won't say I binge on new songs, but one is new songs hit you directly.
Right.
The environment is always there.
Right.
Yes, I do keep listening to them. I've listened to newer composers. I've listened to Sean Roldan, all these young kids singing Sid Sriram and all these kids. I've listened to all of them sing, and and this is a feeling I get that I'm not comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with. It's very bad to play the past and the present. This is whole tendency. Once you hit 40, I think to do it even more. But I have hit 40, but I'm not doing that. But I'm saying we have to reflect on the movements that has happened. There have been some terrible movements that have happened in the past.
Yes.
We have also not reflected on that.
Right.
But this is a movement that is very worrisome. That's. I also think that film directors and film producers, when they go to a music director, what are they looking for? I mean, what is it? What are we looking for? What are you trying to create? And what is music to a film?
Right.
These are all very serious questions, and I think every music director has to, and film producer has to seriously think about it. And only then we're going to get some magical work. Honestly, it's been a while since I heard magical music.
Okay.
To put it very bluntly, it's been a while.
But what if I say that a lot of directors today just say, I want catchy music that's going to bring the audience in for the first couple of days. I mean, they're not interested in work that will survive. They're just interested in, just a hook to draw audiences in.
But there are two things. One, this is true of every market. It's not just the film market.
Right.
Carnatic musician will also tell you that. I want to make sure that the audience sits. So it's something that's part of our generational.
Right.
But my question will be, why do we have to presume that catchy music cannot have gravitas?
Exactly.
So when you say you want catchy music, are you somewhere saying that very music that has gravitas is not catchy? Then are you trivializing your own work?
Right.
Why would anybody trivialize their own work? Right. And say, I don't want to make great music, I want to make catchy music. That's really a low level of self-esteem. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say if I'll say I make very serious music, but my serious music will draw everybody.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of arrogance you need if you're a music director.
I hope you have that arrogance soon, Krishna. Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Always a pleasure.
Thanks,
Bye.
If you want to really hear about cinema and the different facets of cinema in this country, then subscribe to Film Companion ASAP.